It's 1:30. The December 19th meeting of the Oklahoma City Traffic and Transportation Commission's call to order. Jim Witcher.
Here, sir.
Rob Littlefield. Here. Walt Kula.
Here, sir.
Barry Hale.
Here, sir.
James Schuline. Amon Jenkins. Kevin George.
Here.
Milford J. Clayton. Milford, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Bow our heads in the attitude of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we come this afternoon with our heads humbly bowed. First, to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to assemble here to serve the people. Today marks our last meeting for 2011. We pray that you have been pleased with the way that we have conducted business in the past 11 months. I ask that you continue to bless each person under the sound of my voice with good health and the ability and the desire to celebrate the upcoming holidays. This we pray. Amen.
Amen. Item number 2A is the approval of the minutes from the November 21st meeting. Do I have a motion? Have a motion by Commissioner Clayton.
I'll second, sir.
Have a second by Commissioner Witcher. Further discussion? Could I have your votes, please?
I was not present, so I cannot vote.
Thank you. The item is approved. Thank you. Item 2B is the election of officers. Before we do this, I'd like to welcome Rob Littlefield from Ward 2 and Kevin George from Ward 8.
Thank you.
Thank you. The election of the officers is for the calendar year of 2012. Do I have any nominations?
For chair, may I nominate Commissioner Kula?
I can second that motion.
Sir, and for vice chair, I nominate Jim Witcher.
I have a nomination for chair for Commissioner Kula and for vice chair, Commissioner Witcher. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? If not, I'd like to have your votes for the slate, please. The slate is approved unanimously. Thank you. Item number 3 is the report on licensed taxi and wrecker services. This is a quarterly report, and this report will be presented in January 2012. Item number 4 is the consent docket. Is there anyone wishing to speak against this item on the consent docket? There's only one item. Do I have a motion to approve the consent docket?
I'll second the motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner George, to approve the consent docket. Further discussion? If not, could I have your votes, please? The item is approved unanimously. Thank you. Item 5 are the items for individual consideration. 5A, the applicant is Arlene Smith, doing business as Blue Knights Sedan and Limousine Service, 6605 Northwest 19th Street, Bethany, Oklahoma, 73008. The request is to consider an application from Arlene Smith for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate one vehicle in limousine service. Could I have staff summary, please?
You've got the staff comments before you that Ms. Smith has turned in a completed application to operate a single vehicle and limousine service, and staff will recommend approval of the application as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve 5A?
Sir, I'd like to make a motion to approve 5A.
Do I have a second? I have a motion by Commissioner Kula, seconded by Commissioner Clayton to approve 5A. Is there further discussion? Ms. Smith, did you wish to say anything before the commission? But would you come up to the podium, please?
Yes.
If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is James C. Smith. I am the husband of the honor. My wife is trying to pursue this matter. We'd like to have this opportunity to be of service in an honorable and safe and drug-free operation. This service we want to provide is a sedan and limo service. Limo in the future, limo will be presented mostly working with funeral homes. We're not trying to get involved with anything of the party nature as much as we want to just be a service to the gentlemen and people in the VIP status picking up to and from the airport. This will be an honor to be of service, and I guarantee you it will be safe, the vehicles will be safe and clean, and we will be operating in a very honorable gesture. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr.
On behalf of her that do not have, she's very nervous. Thank you very much.
No need to be nervous. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Further discussion?
Just wish them all the luck. That tough business.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kula, seconded by Commissioner Clayton to approve item 5A. Could I have your votes, please? The item is approved unanimously. Thank you. Item 5B, the applicant is Paul Lefebvre, Williams, Box, Foshee, and Bullard, P.C., 522 Colcord Drive, Oklahoma City. The request is to consider, 1, remove the no parking anytime restriction on the west side of North Walker Avenue between Northwest 12th Street and Northwest 13th Street. 2, establish 45-degree angle inset public parking on the west side of North Walker Avenue between Northwest 12th and Northwest 13th Street. 3, remove the no parking anytime Monday through Friday restriction on the east side of North Dewey Avenue between Northwest 12th Street and Northwest 13th Street. 4, remove the 2-hour metered parking control on the north side of Northwest 12th Street between North Dewey Avenue and North Walker Avenue. 5, establish 1 reserved parking space for the physically disabled at the north end of the proposed 45-degree angle inset parking spaces on the west side of North Walker Avenue, approximately 40 feet south of Northwest 13th Street. I'm butchering your last name. Please step forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Paul Lefebvre, 522 Colcord.
Thank you.
And I represent the property owner, who is the Urban Renewal Authority. I'm here with their permission, but I'm also representing the party who is under contract with the property in question with Urban Renewal, Cornerstone Development. And with me today is Kathy Bridges with the developer, and also Corey Lips, engineer with Cardinal Engineering, who's working on the project also. This is a development that is going to occupy the entire block, is what's proposed, of Northwest 13th, between 13th and 12th, and Walker on the east and Dewey to the west. It will be an apartment complex with retail along the east boundary on Walker. It's a rather large and involved project, and I'm happy to give you a summary of it if you would like at this time, or be available to answer specific questions that you may have here.
Thank you, Mr. Lefebvre. Could I have staff summary, please?
Okay, this is a rather involved application. Mr. Lefebvre initially had made a request for angle inset parking on the west side of Walker Avenue, and as we were preparing our staff report for this and looking at the total development plan, we realized that in addition to the request to consider the angle parking that you needed to consider, there was also a no parking restriction on the west side of Walker Avenue that needed to be addressed in order to accommodate the inset parking. And then likewise, they were proposing inset parallel parking on the north side of 12th Street and on the east side of Dewey as well. And in researching that, we found there were a number of ordinances passed in the middle to late 50s that needed to be amended in order to make those parking, that type of parking possible along those streets. So the recommendation we've got for you is approval of the angle inset parking as it was presented, removal of the no parking restriction on the west side of Walker, removal of the metered parking controls on 12th Street between Dewey and Walker, and then removal of a no parking Monday to Friday restriction on the east side of Dewey between Northwest 12th and 13th Street.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on 5B?
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Witcher, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins to approve 5B. Further discussion, comments?
Sir, I just have a few things for both the staff and you. The reason why back in the 50s there was no parking on those streets, do we know why they established no parking? Is it just because the roads were narrow at the time? As these are inset, it won't be a problem?
Right. Well, with being in inset parking, it doesn't really have much influence on roadway capacity. Right. I mean, it'll interrupt traffic flow periodically, but none of these streets have got a particularly high daily traffic volume.
But we can assume that the no parking restriction was because it was curb parking into the street.
Right. The only thing we can do is assume that these were probably more carefully guarded corridors once upon a time.
Okay. But
Sorry, Ron. Okay, Mr. Salazar's reminded me there was a hospital there at one point in time
okay,
as well.
so by being inset, we won't have that traffic problem if we had curb parking.
No.
Okay.
No.
And then the second thing is the actual meter parking. Do we know why there's meters there? Are there any businesses around?
Well, there are no longer any meters there. They've apparently been gone for a long time. But the ordinance, so
It's
far as
still
we can
there.
tell, is still in effect.
Oh, okay.
I would believe that it was probably related to the fact that there was a hospital there years ago. And so maybe it was
So they
an
had the
effort
meter
to-
park in there to get the
Right.
flow of people through, but then the meters got pulled, but the ordinance still states.
Right, the meters got pulled and the hospital has since gone away.
Okay, thank you very much.
Stuart, the staff recommendation is not exactly right in line with the application request, right? You put in a Monday through Friday.
No, that reference was to an ordinance that was passed back in the 50s.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So all we're doing is, or the item being presented calls for the elimination of that.
Okay, great.
That particular parking restriction as it applies to the east side of Dewey between 12th and 13th Streets.
Further comments or questions? Item 5B, I have a motion to approve as presented by staff by Commissioner Witcher, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. Could I have your votes, please? The item is approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fever. Item 5C, Ms. Ormson has had an accident and won't be here today and has asked that this item be continued indefinitely.
I can move to continue it indefinitely.
Yeah, I think we should. I've talked with Stuart about this, and it doesn't pose any heartache or grief for his staff, so I think I don't ever remember continuing one indefinitely.
Indefinitely means that they have to reapply or don't have to reapply?
No, in this particular case, because Ms. Ormson doesn't know when she might be able to attend a meeting, and rather than us presenting this item over and over again on continuing agendas, I've got an arrangement with her where I'm going to be checking in as we're getting we're preparing for the next agenda to see if she will be available and able to attend the meeting.
Okay.
So an indefinite continuance allows us to bring it back at such time when she either can be or is indicated that she no longer wants to pursue the item or just wants to have it heard on its own merits.
And no new fees will be incurred?
No, there are no fees for this process.
Okay. All right.
And I'll second the motion.
I don't have a... Did you... Okay.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to continue item 5C by Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Witcher. This will be continued indefinitely. Could I have your votes, please? Item is approved or continued indefinitely. Thank you. Item 5D, the applicant is Bill City, Chief, Oklahoma City Police Department. You have the request before you. Could I have staff summary, please? Did you want to present?
I can do it pretty easy.
Okay.
In short, throughout the most of this year, we've been looking at consolidating a lot of the taxi cab ordinances into the other section from 32 to 56. Well, a while back, it was brought up before this commission, and it was approved, and it went to council. Well, some issues were brought up by the taxi cab companies at that time that the chief wanted to address. And one of them was whether or not they could park at meters and the amount of available taxi cab stands. Well, after that, a subcommittee was formed out of this commission, and we looked at increasing those. At the time, taxi cabs had 12 spots available through downtown Bricktown. As a result of the subcommittee and then Stewart and traffic management and creating some more spots, we created another 12. So we doubled the amount of spots they had. And still, while we did that, the ordinance says that they're allowed to park at meters, through basically a kind of the way the ordinance is worded. Well, the change that we're proposing, because we have a increased need of parking for public parking in downtown Bricktown for parking meters. It's kind of a scarcity right now because of construction and just the amount of people coming into this area. We realized there was a need for that. There was also a need for taxi cabs to have more readily available spaces. So when we increased those spots, we also looked at converting the carriage stands from 12:30 to 3 a.m. into taxi cab stands. And I've talked to all the carriage companies. All but one are fully in agreement with it. The other one says he'll go along with it. He doesn't really have a choice, but he'll go along with it. So all in all, during the peak hours, they'll have 3 times the amount of cab stands that they would have had any other time of the year. But in doing that, I sent an email to the cab companies that said, we've increased in response to your request, we've increased your cab stands. However, in response to the public's need for public parking, we've also included the part in the ordinance that says that they basically taxi cabs can't park at parking meters. So that's why this is being introduced, is twofold: to move the language into consolidating it into Chapter 56, and also to address that they can't park at meters, and to change the carriage stands from 12:30 to 3 a.m. So.
Thank you, Captain. Stuart, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I don't think there's anything to add. I just want to mention that when we presented this, or when we prepared this item and we sent out our email link to the city's website, all the cab companies were contacted. all the ones we had email addresses for did receive notice of this meeting, so just want to let you know that it's fairly well notified. We did a pretty good job as far as notice goes.
How many carriage stands are there, and how large are they?
Right now, hang on, let me get my notes out and I'll tell you. The existing carriage stands, there's 4 of them. And out of those 4, the largest one's on Mickey Mantle, right there across from where the cabs park on the east side of the street. Between all 4 of them, it'll accommodate another 12 vehicles. So that's enough space to accommodate 12 vehicles.
Do I have a motion for 5D? I have a motion by Commissioner Clayton, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins, to approve 5D. Further discussion, questions?
Yes, sir. I'd like to just bring up the point that when this came about, we were talking about cabs, taxis being able to park when off-duty in a metered spot. If they go downtown on their own time, they're not on the clock, seeing as these are privately owned vehicles, that's theirs, they go downtown, want to go see a movie, go eat, they pull in a parking space, the light's not on, they're not on duty. And we talked about that, and I read in here, you were concerned about enforcement, not knowing if a cab is on duty or off duty. I'd like to throw that out as a concern.
Originally, when we wrote this, and Jill can attest to this after several meetings, we tried to include language that would cover that. However, in the attempts to cover that, you create so many more problems that you end up with an ordinance that just doesn't make sense. So what we reverted back to at the chief's request was just exactly the way it's worded. They can't park at a parking meter. Now, what we're going to do as far as like with our PSTs and officers is, you know, if a cab driver's sitting there, it's obvious he's on duty, he's out of meter, it's pretty, with a little bit of investigation, they'll be able to figure out it's a violation. Cab's parked there, nobody around it, it's obvious not on duty, it'll be at that discretion of the PST or the officer to do a little bit more investigation on that and whether or not they take enforcement action. But like I said, when we tried, we went through several revisions of just trying to include language, and none of it, we couldn't make it work. I mean, it was too cloudy where nobody would understand it.
Or just saying that a cab that's on duty can't park at a meter. I mean, we can't just say that.
Well, what was the issue that we wrote?
On duty is the lights on, because you don't walk up to a cab unless their light's on, right?
Well, here the lights aren't totally indicator, because not all of them have them. It's not an indicator of they're on duty, they're off duty. That was one of the other issues we came up with was, well, how do we know if we don't have lights? How are we going to issue something, or what are we going to do are we going to make them put something in the window? And it just,
Well, then that brings up another concern, and I'm sorry to dovetail. Concern is I thought that all taxis had a working light on top, and that was part of every time I've asked a question to a cab company, they always would say, yeah, the light's on, light's off concept. Is that?
Sergeant McCabe, can you address that?
In our ordinance, it says they'll have a top light, but it doesn't specify that it'll be on during working hours or off when they're off.
So it just says there'll be a working light, but it doesn't say what the light works for.
That's correct.
Well, why have I been laboring on the fact that if the light is on, the person is working?
I'm not sure. That's the way it is in any other city, and I think a lot of our drivers have come from other cities, so they've kind of adapted that, even though it's not in our ordinance, it's kind of their practice that they do.
Well, so what you've seen in other cities is if the light's on, they're available for hire, lights off, they're not available for hire, they're either on a call or they're off duty.
Yes, that's generally the way it is.
Well, could we put something in like that? And then that way it clears up this parking thing.
To make that the dispositive issue over whether a cab is on duty or not creates a lot of problems, because a cab could pull into a spot, turn off their light, and sit there and say, I'm off duty. But then a person walks up and says, hey, can you take me to 63rd and May? Oh, sure, hop in.
Which would then be a violation of the ordinance if we were to write that as a requirement.
Which is where we kept falling back to leaving it at the discretion or the burden of the person writing the ticket to do a little further investigation.
But if it's against the rules, and all I'm saying is, I thought it was required that when they're driving around and they're available for hire, their light's on, somebody gets in, they activate the meter, light goes off. And so I assumed, again, now that's an assumption on my part, that that was the requirement. And you're saying it's not. So what I'm throwing out is, why don't we make that a requirement? And therefore, if somebody does something like you just said, ma'am, then it's a violation of that rule, meaning they accepted a fare and they were not available for hire. And that would be a violation.
If I hire a cab and they take me to a spot and they pull into a parking spot and I run into the business, that light's going to be off. Now, is he working or is he off duty? You know, because it's going to look the same on the outside, even though I've hired him, he's in use.
That's a very good question to you, Captain, and I didn't think of that. Somebody pulls into a parking space and it's staying on duty, and that person is using that local business.
It's still going to come back to, that's where every scenario we ran through, it's going to end up coming back to somebody with boots on the ground asking a question, doing a little bit of more research to find out whether or not there's a violation, rather than just, and here you go.
Because the intent of this ordinance change is to say, don't park in a metered spot and be available for hire.
The intent of yes.
That's the intent of this ordinance, is that I don't take up a metered parking space. I go use my cab stands when I'm available for hire.
And the amount of cab stands they have now and the places we put them, there shouldn't be an issue.
So then it comes back down to the private use of the vehicle. But we offer the parking garages.
Correct, and they can pay, they have other means of parking. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Mickey, how many would you presume vehicles are actually private vehicles out of, instead of like?
I don't have an exact number. I would say probably 60% are privately owned.
And are a lot of those their only means of transportation, or are they considered their company vehicle?
Some of them are. I think most of them have a secondary form of transportation. What most drivers tell me is, hey, if I try to go to the store in my cab, I got 20 people asking for a ride, then, I'm off. So if I can drive something else, then I choose to do that.
And in our conversations with the cab companies, we've heard, some of them, are owned by the person, but they don't want to drive it for that simple fact.
Okay, good. That was a talk a few months ago and a concern of the cab companies. As long as we've worked it out and we have a good reason for where we're going, then I'm fine. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Well, the only thing I'd say about it is the lack of any cab companies being here today seems to say that they're okay with this. If it was well-known, put out, like...
Yeah, I sent them all an email to their corporate email addresses on November 30th.
So it's just been an issue that cabs are using up available parking spaces where there are meters.
Right.
In areas of town that have high traffic where people are looking for a place to park.
Correct.
This is a way to help the citizens find a parking space.
Correct.
And it doesn't affect a cab's ability to park in an unmetered parking space.
Oh, no, no.
So, or a parking garage, or a paid parking garage. Okay. Thank you.
Are parking meters on the weekend, like on Sundays, do you have to pay for a parking meter on Sunday?
No, meters aren't enforced on holidays, Sundays, and there was an ordinance change about a year or so ago that included Saturdays as under the list of holidays, so weekends are
So
not
weekends
enforced.
are so they can park on the weekend, right? Because they're not metered at that point? Is that right?
Well, that'd be a good question, because at that point, they're
Oops, sorry.
available.
Are the rules and regulations posted on the meters themselves? They used to be stated when they were enforced.
Well, I believe they are, but in the future, that when the city migrates more towards a multi-meter type setup where there'll just be a single meter, I suppose we'll be posting the similar regulations, or have those regulations so they're displayed to people who are paying to park at that point. But I believe for the most part, there's a small label around the time ring inside the meter that gives you an indication as to when the meters are being enforced.
What's the fine for a violation?
You would have to ask me that one.
Less than $1 million?
Hang on. I think I have it here. Vehicle
This information says it's a Class A offense.
I believe if the information I have here is correct, it'd be a $50 fine.
It would be a Class A offense. I'm not sure of the exact monetary amount.
Yeah, the fine is listed on the back of the first page of the agenda item, where it indicates vehicle operators violating this ordinance will now be subject to a $50 fine, could have their vehicles impounded.
Sorry, I think that's actually for when a private vehicle is parked in a taxi cab loading zone. So it's a little bit different. But the ordinance was amended to clarify that it is a Class A offense and not a Class B. So it would just be a fine and not jail time or jury.
It's on page 6.
Yeah.
It talks about 56-60B, and then subparagraph B, and then you go up to the little graph right above there, item number 2, 5660B,
Yeah, $50.
$50.
Any other comments, questions? I have a motion by Commissioner Clayton, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins, to approve 5D. Can I have your votes, please? The item is approved unanimously. Thank you. Item number 6, with comments from citizens, and we don't have any citizens present. Well, we're all citizens, just not any in the... Item number 7, reports and other items from traffic commissioners. Commissioner Witcher.
Nothing to report, just welcome our new commission members to the Horseshoe.
Commissioner Littlefield.
I'm proud to be here. Thank you very much. Look forward to working with all of you. In the future, I think there'll be some discussion about some traffic issues and challenges for neighborhoods in Ward 2 around the 56, 57, 58th Street, Western Avenue corridor. Chesapeake Development is changing things up there. The developments are awesome, but it's definitely having an impact on traffic. So look forward to you all working with me on that as time comes along. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. Commissioner Kula.
I'd just like to say a great thanks from all the city people, to our two outgoing traffic commissioners, Milford Clayton. Milford J. Clayton, sorry, and David Miller for 12 years each serving. I've been here 3 years, and that's 4 times more. That's a long time. So I just would like to say thanks from all the citizens for your hard work.
Thank you.
For both of you.
Commissioner Hale? Commissioner Jenkins?
I would just like to express my appreciation for this update on policies and procedures because it answered a question I had in regards to one of the agenda items, and that was in regards to...
Thank you. Commissioner George?
Just like to say thank you for the warm welcome today. I appreciate that. For 12 years, City, I'm sure, we're very proud. Glad you've been part of this.
Thank you. Commissioner Clayton?
Well, I come before you not with a prepared statement, but with a prepared heart. It's true that I walked in here over 12 years ago, wondering which way I was going to go and to serve the people. And I am so appreciative to be afforded that opportunity. But I want to convey to you, Stuart, you have been a masterpiece for this organization. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, simply because when I came here, we were going through reams of material. You made it so easy. I look forward in coming to the Traffic and Transportation meeting. And I will miss each of you. But you know, I want to end with these words. I hope that each of you have a beautiful holiday season. A beautiful holiday season. But listen to the old man. Don't forget the reason why we're celebrating this time of year. God bless you.
Thank you. Are there any committees that wish to report? If not, I would ask for staff report, please.
All right, well, you've got our standard list of yield signs that have been approved administratively. There's also got a list on a little bit of no parking that have been amended. We've also got a draft version of the Commission's standard operating policies and procedures. There's an update to it because the 2007 municipal code has been changed. It's now a 2010 edition, and we are providing, as Commissioner Jenkins had alluded to, I think it's an alternative to direct petitioning as far as bringing requests forward. Because, we will still, the way this amendment reads, we're still requiring that, an applicant demonstrates there's at least 2/3 in support of whatever it is they're bringing forward. But there are times when applicants either can't physically get out to petition an area or may have other issues that might prevent them from doing it, whether they're uncomfortable in doing it. There's any number of things. But this will open up an avenue where they can send out by certified mail basically their petition to everyone that falls within the affected area, and then those individuals can respond and send their letter straight back to us. And it just opens up a different form of area notification and petition, and a different means of petitioning for changes. But if there are any comments or questions, any other things that you think you might like to see included or deleted or changed somehow, this is kind of a living, breathing document, and the intent is to make it easier for us to be able to put information in the hands of citizens that are thinking about making requests, kind of to demystify the process somewhat, just to show them, what's involved, why they do it, and then when we bring an application through to you, then you'll know that they've met their part as far as public notification goes. They've got general concurrence from the area, so by the time you act on it, it won't just be like a person who's requesting like a massive area of no parking throughout their neighborhood, and the neighbors have absolutely no idea what's headed their way. So anyway, like I said, it's an update, and I'd appreciate any comments I can get from you. And when I've gathered all those together, made amendments, resent them out, make sure that everyone's happy with the language, we'll bring an item forward so you can adopt an updated version of the policy.
Thank you, Stuart. Jill, do you have anything to add? Captain?
It's nice to get to meet you and get to know you, Mr. Clayton. Miss your prayers and our invigorating talks we would have. It was nice to get to know you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, and it's been an honor and a privilege to work with all of you, and thank you so much. Stuart has made my job easy. Thank you. So, thanks again. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. We're gone. Thank you.